Chapter 5.
You'll forgive me if I say that as a hideout, this place stinks.
A little public, perhaps, but that too has its compensations.
A little public?
Calm down, Mara. When the only viable places to live on a planet are a handful of deep valleys, of course things are going to get a bit crowded.
Crowds mean cover for Imperial spies.
The Imperials have no idea where we are. Unless you know differently.
I can't turn it on and off like a sensor pack.
Ah, interesting. Is this a remnant of some previous Jedi training?
Tell me about the ships.
Excuse me?
The capital warships that you were very careful not to tell Grand Admiral Thrawn about back when he visited us on Merkur. You promised to give me the details later. This is later.
All right. Have you heard of the Katana fleet?
That was the group also called the Dark Force, wasn't it? Something like 200 Dreadnought-class heavy cruisers that were lost about 10 years before the Clone Wars broke out. All the ships were fitted with some kind of new-style, full-rig slave circuitry. And when the system malfunctioned, the whole fleet jumped to light speed together and disappeared.
It was the Old Republic's grand demonstration of how effective a slave-rigged fleet could be.
Some demonstration.
One or more of the fleet's crewers picked up a hive virus at one of the ports of call on their maiden voyage. It was spread throughout all 200 ships while in dormant state, which meant that when it suddenly flared up, it took down nearly everybody at once. Just how much empty space was available in the galaxy to lose a couple hundred ships in, the flurry of interest ended.
So how did you happen to find it?
Purely by accident, I assure you. It was just over 15 years ago. I was working as navigator/sensor specialist for a small independent smuggling group. We'd rather botched a pickup and had to shoot our way past a pair of Karak cruisers on our way out. We made it all right, but since I hadn't had time to do a complete light speed calculation, we dropped back to real space a half-light year out to recalculate. Imagine our surprise when we discovered a pair of dreadnoughts waiting directly in our path. The ship seemed to be fully functional, with both interior and running lights showing, and even a standby sensor scan in operation. Naturally, we assumed it was part of the group we just tangled with, and the captain made an emergency jump to light speed to get us out of there. Not a good idea. The ship hit the mass shadow of a large comet on the way out, blowing the main hyperdrive and nearly wrecking the rest of the ship on the spot. 5 of our crew were killed in the collision, and another 3 died of injuries before we could limp back to civilization on the backup hyperdrive.
How many of you were left?
There were 6 of us left. As I said, though, I don't think any of the others realized what it was we'd found. I've thought about going back and doing something with the ships, but I never had the time to do it properly. Unloading 200 dreadnoughts on the open market isn't something you rush into without a good deal of prior preparation.
Until now.
Are you suggesting I sell them to the Empire?
They're in the market for capital ships, and they're offering value plus 20%. What's the other option? Give them to the New Republic?
That might be more profitable in the long run.
What are you going to do?
At the moment, nothing. The most prudent course right now is to stay neutral.
Except that giving Thrawn the dreadnoughts might get him off our exhaust trail.
Is Card around?
Right here. How's the camouflage work going?
We're about done. We ran short of flash netting, though. Do we have any more?
There's some at one of the dumps. I'll send Mara to get it.
I'll see you later. For a moment, Mara stood in the entry alcove of their building, out of the busy flow of pedestrian traffic, and looked around her. Through the gaps between the nearest buildings, she could see the more distant parts of the city vale. In places, she could see all the way to the edge. Mara gave the immediate area a quick scan. She glanced across each of the narrow pedestrian alleyways between the buildings. Between two of them, back at the building's rear, where he was hardly visible, was the motionless figure of a man wearing a blue scarf and patterned green tunic, staring in her direction. Mara let her gaze drift on, as if she hadn't seen him, her heart thudding suddenly in her throat. As soon as she was out of the mysterious loiterer's line of sight, she began cutting her way across the flow, ducked into the alleyway, and hurried toward the rear. There was a good chance she could take him from behind.
"Okay, friend. You want to play? Let's play."
It was pretty obvious that his intention was to lead her up to the more sparsely populated industrial areas to the north. If she could get there first, she might be able to turn things around on him. Halfway down the block, he was crouched motionless behind a row of storage barrels, with his back to her. Amateur. Watching him closely, not even bothering with her blaster, she eased around the corner and started silently toward him.
"That's far enough. About time you showed up. I was starting to think you'd gotten lost or something."
"Who are you?"
"Oh, no, Red. I'm the one what's asking the questions here. Not that I need to, of course. That fancy stuff on top pretty well tells me all I need to know. Dead giveaway. Pardon the expression."
"I'm sure we can double whatever you've been offered."
"That's a real generous offer, Red. Real generous. Half a sure thing's better than twice or nothing. I like staying with a sure thing."
2 meters behind him, piled carelessly up against a retaining wall, was a small stack of scrap metal parts waiting to be picked up. "You mind telling me first what happened here?"
"What's to tell? I needed a decoy. He was wandering around the wrong place at the wrong time. In the story."
His grin suddenly vanished.
"Enough stolen. Turn around and start walking. Unless you're looking to spite me by making me settle for the death fee instead."
For a long moment, she just stood there, breathing hard, muscles trembling with reaction. "There's your twice of nothing. Enjoy it." An ID, probably forged, giving his name as Dengar Roth. Taking one final look around, she headed for home. "Hey, you all! Where the blazes? We've got trouble."
"What kind of trouble?"
"The bounty hunter kind. We're probably all in there."
"So, I'm worth 20,000 now."
"What I want to know is what we're going to do about it."
"We're going to do the only prudent thing. Namely, retreat. Duncan, get on the secure comm and tell Lacton to start pulling the drop apart again. Then call Chin and his team and have them go over and repack this stuff in the equipment dumps. I want to get off Rishi by midnight, if at all possible."
"Got it." "And what happens when we run out of backup bases?"
"We don't give up the dreadnoughts under duress. Not to Thrawn, not to anyone else."
"We may have to."
"We may choose to. We will never have to. Is that clear?"
"Yes." And later that night, as the wild car drove through the mottled sky of hyperspace, the dreams started again.